Hello, hello. This is Widowed Shitstorm. My name is Maggie, and ta-da, I'm a widow. And if you haven't noticed, it's a shitstorm. And that's it. That's all I got about the name of this. I am calling this one episode 8. What am I going to title this one? Something in the realm of Stop Being Weird About Widows Who Don't Have Kids. That's what I'll call this one. And I was going to blog about it. I've actually been sick all week and couldn't quite come up with enough of an attention span to write for very long since I've been sleeping most of the week. But I am feeling a little bit better right now and realize that this topic is way better as a video anyways. So last week I attended, okay, well, if you don't know me, so all my several viewers, which is basically my friends, and maybe someone else who might happen to watch this, but if you don't know me, my husband Mark passed away a little bit over 2 years ago. I was 28 at the time, and he died by suicide. And needless to say, it's been rough, but things are starting to move along, and I've started to tackle a lot more topics and areas of my life that need to be dealt with in the midst of losing my husband at such a young age and all the bullshit that comes along with that. So last weekend I attended a really spectacular event. I'm not going to say the name of it, but out of respect for that, I don't actually know how to publicly address the event responsibly, and I don't really want to tie it in with something called Widow to Shitstorm, because it's an event I really respect. But basically it was an event for people who've lost someone to suicide who were in the military, which was me. My husband was a Marine. And I went to a group that was for spouses without children. And it's so necessary that we have that group. We were a very small group. And apparently it was the largest they've ever had. There were like 6 of us there. But in an event that has like a couple hundred suicide widows, to have only that many of us go to the group for widows or spouses without children is like a big deal. So there's not many of us. So you can imagine that mostly who I end up around is mostly widows with kids. Some of my dearest friends, actually most of us don't have kids, and at this particular event we were only suicide widows. So a lot of my other fellow widows are also childless, and we are apparently a group of humans to which other humans don't know how to speak. So one thing that happens a lot is, so when most of all humans say stupid things when in the face of grief or in the face of a death, like they'll say, like, we just say the stupidest things. Mostly what you should say is, I'm very sorry for your loss, or I'm so sorry for your loss. Like, you really shouldn't say anything else. You should shut up. You shouldn't say, oh, if you need anything, and then make the stupid faces that you make. I actually saw a video once, and it came up last weekend when we were in the group, we were talking about it, and I remembered this woman made a video about like the head tilt that people do. They do this weird like, oh, I'm sorry face. Stop doing that. I'm sure I did it before Mark died, and it probably comes out every now and then, but I really try not to do the stupid head tilt. But it, like, as a widow, I get that a lot. Actually, I remember a friend of mine shortly after Mark died told me he had recently lost his mom, and he told me, we were at an event, and he's like, all right, Maggie, people are going to come up to you and they're going to make stupid faces and go, oh, and he's like, just tell them you're busy. And I'm like, oh, I'm busy on task or something, so they'll leave you alone and stop making that stupid face. But we get it a lot when we don't have kids. So first of all, you can say nothing right to a widow, because if you assume she loved and misses her husband, that might not be the case. And if you assume she doesn't miss him, you'll probably insult her. And if you for the thing with kids, so people will ask me all the time, oh, so did you have kids? Do you have kids? Oh, children? Any children? And they're already like weird asking, they make this like face, do you have any kids? And then when I say no, it's just me, I don't know what it is, but people, it's like they lose their voices and they start mumbling and they just go, oh, okay, oh, yeah, okay. And oh yeah. It's like, what is that? And it's like they don't even speak. There's no words coming out of their mouths. They just go, oh yeah, okay. And like they either, I can't tell, and they sound like an idiot no matter how they say it, but they'll say like, oh, okay, well that's good. And you're like, how is that good? Maybe I wanted kids. And they'll say, oh, okay, well, I'm sorry. But if you have kids, then they say things like, so I feel for widows with kids too, because they say, well, at least you have a piece of him. Well, you have a piece of him. But sometimes those widows are like, I'm fucking exhausted and have to raise this child or these children on my own, and that asshole left me. So really, you're screwed. You can't say the right thing no matter what. But like, people do this. They just do this like, oh, I'm so sorry. Assuming I even wanted kids, which I did, but I didn't. Again, you can't win here. Just stop making the stupid face. But then, so recently, last weekend, it actually came up several times. So not only am I like in this category of not subpar, but like already alone widows who have no kids, and then I'm like 31, and then I have to start thinking about things um, like, do I want kids? I was recently, I really wanted kids with Mark, and then I didn't. My husband was dealing with a gambling addiction, and he lied a lot, and he was a really good guy, but he had a lot going on personally, and obviously if he took his own life, things weren't just fine and dandy. And I did really want kids, and I had baby fever like crazy, but I didn't want kids given the circumstances, and he knew that, and I said, like, I'm not having kids with you if you're not reliable for being responsible and all that. And then he died, and then I was actually really glad we didn't have kids. I had one moment once about like a week after he died, and it probably lasted 30 seconds when I realized, like, shit, like, that's it. I'll never have Mark's kids, and Mark will never have kids. And I was actually driving, and I stopped in the middle of the road. I was in like a quiet neighborhood, so no one was around, and it was dark, so it was safe, thank goodness. I just stopped, and I panicked for like 20-30 seconds, and then it was done, and I was like, okay. Other than that, I've never had any moments of, I mean, maybe moments if the topic comes up, but I don't like sit and think about, I wish I'd had kids with Mark. I'm actually very relieved we didn't. Which is basically only I can say that. You cannot. You cannot say, oh, okay, well, that's good. That stupid face people make. I forget what I was saying. This is normal, not knowing what I was saying. Oh, yeah. So I did want kids, and then for a while I really didn't, and I was too busy being depressed and dealing with just myself to even really think about it. And then I thought kids sounded terrible, and for a number of reasons I really am quite terrified at the thought of having kids, and I'll probably delve further into that in my blog. I'm havinganadventure.com, shameless plug. But then, so I went on the Tinder a few months ago. I'm not really on it right now. I'm actually not on it. It's not on my phone. But I ended up meeting someone that I really liked. And the thing is, like, it seems to be that most guys my age have kids. So then it adds to this feeling like, well, I'm already behind. And I know that it's just a thought in my head, but to tell any childless widow of any age, whether she's in her early 20s or her late 30s, she's gonna feel like, shit, I'm behind on this imaginary timeline we've made up. But it does feel that way. It's like I already got married and thought that's how my life was gonna go, even though it totally didn't go. It wasn't really happy, and it was not my happily ever after by any means, even before he died. Obviously not after he died. But you really do think, like, I already had that, and that's what I thought I wanted, and now it's like I have to start over. And then I started seeing someone, not very seriously, but the most serious of anybody I went out with. We ended up really hitting it off. He's a really great guy. We saw each other maybe like once a week for about 2 months, and timing really was what's off. Other than that, we totally, like, really hit it off. I obviously still really like this guy, but it's so not going to work, and it's very mutual to end it, but because I'm so not ready for a relationship. But one thing that happened was when we started seeing each other and talking a lot, he has a son. He has a young son. He's 4, and his kid's adorable. I've never met him. What? No, I've never actually met him, but he's adorable. And I just like his dadness is super attractive. So there's this like weird thing about like I don't want to date someone who has kids because it's like I feel like I don't know, there's perks to that. But then there's also like I can't help but be attracted to their dadness. That's my word for it. But it was like I started seeing him and immediately I had baby fever again. And I was like, well, shit. So then I have all these things that I want again or that I forgot I wanted or didn't realize I still wanted. And, so then like I got babies on the brain. That kind of ended again. Though I was at the store the other day and I was looking at baby clothes and my uterus actually ached. That might have been cramps, but, babies. So anyway, so that didn't work out. And then all of a sudden I'm like, I don't want kids again. So then I'm at the event last weekend and we're talking about, not having kids and how people look at you like, oh, and they make stupid faces at you and start thinking about things like, after that relationship ended, like I really was like, I don't know how long it's going to be before I'm ready for a relationship. So I start thinking about like, good Lord, if I can't even handle dating, like by the time I'm ready to even consider that, how old am I going to be? Am I going to have any eggs left? And you have no right to comment on this and say anything like, don't worry, you're still young, because that is actually how it feels. And I'm one of like a billion women that feel that way, whether they're widowed or divorced or dealing with fertility issues. Like you really do think things like once you're 30, you think like, how many years left do I have to have kids? And so then I start thinking about things like freezing my eggs. And shortly after Mark died, I was out with a friend of mine who was also widowed, and she's like 6-7 years into widowhood. And she was probably the only person who could have suggested it to me, having been there herself. She said, have you considered freezing your eggs? And I was like, no, I haven't fucking considered freezing my eggs. Who thinks about that shit? I had just turned, at that point, I think I was 29. And I was like, I have to think about freezing my eggs? Like, the fuck is this? But I started thinking about it again recently and at the event last weekend, and I was like, shit, maybe I should freeze my eggs. And then I'm like, I don't even know if I want kids, again, for another whole plethora of reasons. But then I looked it up and I was like, oh, sweet Jesus, it's a lot of friggin' money to freeze your eggs to maybe want kids someday. And maybe by the time I even want them, maybe I'll be with someone. But then maybe I'll find out I can't have kids. Like, it just goes back and forth all the time. So then, like, I have all that going on. And then I discovered through a number of encounters that I'm like, so there's like widowed, and there's widowed without kids. Not that there's really a rank or hierarchy to who's so great, but like you do get different levels of looks and friends. Widows with kids, I don't envy you. I think you're powerhouse women and men. Widowed people with kids, just to deal with that heartache and have to care for another human being or several other human beings at the same time I didn't have to do that. So I acknowledge you for everything that you have to do in the face of grief and caring for other human beings. It's a lot. But I realized that in this made up hierarchy, there's like this sub-level. There was this assumption that like when your spouse dies, you will replace them with a pet. Don't get me wrong, I want a dog. I have wanted a dog. It's like seriously since Mark died, even though I'd have to actually have taken care of them, and there were several periods, so it's like the thought of me taking care of another living creature was questionable. Considering I was like afraid to leave the house for a while. I went through a really bad phase with my PTSD was really bad, and I was afraid of things that weren't happening. But like there's this assumption out there that when your spouse dies, you'll replace them with a pet, typically a dog, or as most of the single women in our 30s fear, a cat. like we're going to become cat ladies, widowed or not. That's like a real thing. I talked to a lot of my friends about it. Like, have you started your cat collection yet? Mine will be dogs. But I got invited to something recently, and to my friends watching this, I'm not mad at any of you. Those of you who might feel like you're being blamed here. But I got invited to something that was for widows of a particular specific widows, for a specific group. And I got invited to go to this event that's for them, and they're to take family photos for free. And it's being donated. It's from this really awesome organization that they're up to really awesome stuff. But they invited me to come to participate, and I said, "Oh well, I don't have a family, like my family photos, and I'm not sending out Christmas cards. So can I take photos by myself?" And someone said, "No." Can you bring your pets? I was like, I don't have any pets. And I don't think she meant it in a harsh way. I'm actually not mad at her. It was more that it was like the 4th or 5th time in a week that this pet issue came up. And then somebody else commented, like, they didn't see that I said, no, I don't have any pets. And they said, oh, Maggie, bring your pup. And I was like, why are we all assuming that I have a dog? And then I had a friend offer for me to borrow her dog. She said she has 3. She's also widowed. And it's like, well, I could. And then I, posted. I was like, I'm going to start borrowing people's dogs. You're going to have to bring them to me because I don't have a car, because that's also tied up in all the widowed bullshit. Because I just recently got rid of my husband's car. And then I talked to a family member. Again, if you're watching this, I'm not upset with you. It was just like last straw. And they said, what's this about you posting that you're going to get a dog? Remember, you don't have any money for a dog. And I was like, I know. I'm well aware. Thank you. And it's like you just can't win. So, yeah. I don't know. But I'm to the point where I just need you to stop commenting on my child/pet status. Please don't make any stupid faces at me or head tilt. Oh, don't do that. It's just shocking. It's all very shocking to me. I didn't know you could be a subpar widow by not having a dog. Yep. And then the more I talk to people, so I'm just talking to somebody else that I'm not on the Tinder right now, but then I'm talking to him, and he's my age. He's actually like 3 days older than me. And find out he's got 3 kids. So everybody my age seems to have kids, and all the widows seem to have dogs. So, anyway, that's all I really have to say about that. I'm just interested in your comments. Widows. I mean, most of you do have dogs and pets. I don't know. Can I borrow them? I feel like that's worse than the third wheel, borrowing someone's dog, borrowing another widow's dog. I don't know, but it might come to it. And if y'all get Christmas photos from me this year that are, me and some borrowed dogs, just don't be surprised. So, yeah. That's it, people. Widow to shitstorm. Stop making faces at widows without kids.